All right. What's up, everyone? This is Isaac with Hunger Smash Fitness coming to you once again with my highly esteemed co-host, John, at My Block Strongest Man. And today we have the one and only legend, Magnus Ver Magnusson, coming on today. Magnus, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you guys?
Good.
Very happy to have you.
Yeah. So first of all, I just wanted to ask, I saw that you emceed the Empire Classic Strongman, and that the owners of 360 Fitness, Darla and Dave, invited you. So this is your second time coming out now for Empire?
Yes, it's my second time actually.
Okay. And it was your birthday.
The first one was, before the thing that we don't mention.
Good.
The world situation.
And then the next one was supposed to happen, the next year. But 2 years later, I'm here.
Okay.
Actually, it's on my birthday actually.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, thank you. That was kind of interesting when I realized that. We're like, oh, wait a minute, that's my birthday, right?
What was it? A good birthday party at least? I mean, you basically had 200 friends that came to your birthday party. So
yeah, it was fun.
Good.
And I had this amazing birthday cake made for me.
Yeah, that thing looked cool because it was a Viking head on the cake,
it was just the coolest birthday cake I've ever seen.
Good, glad to hear that. How have you liked Coeur d'Alene and 360 and 360 Fitness and all that?
It's been good. I brought my wife with me. So we spent a few extra days.
Yeah,
and just kind of relaxing, hanging out, but I'm still back to the 360 training almost every morning.
Yeah.
I still like to do my training, even though I've stopped playing with the big weights. I can still do it, but no point anymore.
Yeah.
Now I'm just trying to be more fit and healthy, and taking a bit of the weight off as well. So I'm closing in on 60. So
you're still a young buck. You got lots of time.
You look fantastic. So, and Isaac, I know we have a bunch of questions from our fan base for Magnus. One very important one, Magnus, if you wouldn't mind me starting off with this one, and I'll tell you the question, then I'll tell you who it's from at the end. So the question is, how do you, what are your best tips to go into World's Strongest Man as an alternate and win on your first try? Sincerely, Mitchell Hooper.
Well, I don't think that's ever going to happen again. First of all, it happened in a certain way that year I'd been doing really well in strongman competitions. I had a sport club sponsoring me from where I'm from, on the east coast of Iceland. They sponsored me a couple of flights, which I used to go to Scotland and other things to just to prove myself. And I was doing really well. So I got offered the opportunity to come to World's Strongest Man as an alternate, as an event tester. Well, that's usually how because it's a TV program, an event tester goes in, all the events are tested before the competitors do them to make sure they'll work right, the camera angles are right, and things like that. So I was ready for that, and my fellow countryman John Paul Sigmarsson was going to go, but 5 weeks before the contest, he tore his bicep, and I get a call almost in the middle of the night from the guy running it at that time, basically saying, well, John Paul has just tore a bicep, he's out, and we want you to compete in his place. And, I was in good shape. I was ready, and I'd been going up against Joe Paul and other guys that summer, and made them work for their money. So yeah, I was up for it. I was convinced that I was going to go there and win it. It was no doubt in my mind. Actually, at one point, there came a little doubt in my mind. We all met at the airport in London. We all met at that same airport and flew to the Canary Islands, on the same plane. So I started seeing these guys coming in. And that was big Manfred Herbel, the giant Dutchman, Ted van den Parra. And, guys like that. And I'm like looking around, I'm like almost like the smallest guy there. And I'm like, okay, what have I got myself into now? And it was, big O.D. Wilson. And but hey, I had beat O.D. Wilson on a few occasions. So, I thought about it. I thought about it just a little bit, and I'm like, now I'll show these guys what I'm capable of. And I ended up pretty much winning. I didn't even. It was enough for me to place last in the last event. I would have still won. So yeah, I pretty much walked away with it.
And it certainly developed into a legendary career from there. I actually had another question from somebody on my channel asking, do you think it would have been possible for you to win a fifth at some point? And I was looking at the history, and you won in 91, 94, 95, and 96, and you were second place in the 2 off years in 92, 93. One of them was only by 1 point to Ted van der Parra. So how close were you to a fifth?
I was really close, and I should have had the fifth. But, sometimes just things don't go your way. Or for the last World's Strongest Man I went to, that was the only really show that I known the events, and the events were fitted me perfectly. And on my last training session, I picked up an injury, and I couldn't perform the way I wanted, and I didn't even qualify for the final, which was a bummer. But it is what it is, and 4 victories, I'll take it.
Only 3 people to ever do it. Go ahead, Isaac.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, actually, I had
actually 4.
Well, if you count the one who has 5, which is Marius, yes.
Well, you got John Paul Sigmarsson with 4, me with 4.
All right, Brian and Big Z. Yeah, you're right. I won't say which one I forgot.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually have a question that one of my people asked me, I guess, so what did you change in your training from competing nationally in Iceland to competing at the world level?
Not much, really. But I started out as a powerlifter, so a lot of the lifts that I did change my weight training. I went into doing more of sets, more volume, instead of just the heavy weights all the time. I started doing more like Olympic lifting, like power cleans and high pulls and the overhead lifts, and just developing technique, developing the strength, and developing the muscle endurance. I started doing a lot of step ups as well to help with my balance and to get my body used to working on a one leg at a time. It's like you're pulling a truck or walking with a car on your shoulders, so something like that. And it all paid off. At that time, I didn't have any equipment. I didn't have Atlas stones. I never had Atlas stones when I was competing on World's Strongest Man to train on. I did a lot of shows and exhibitions where the stones were, and all that was pretty much my event training. I did up to 30 competition shows a year, And in my case, I just believed in getting stronger in my gym lifts, because I was doing so much of the other things and shows and other competitions that I believed that was enough of event training for me. It was later on that the guys started. It was pretty much Yoko Ahola and Sven Carlsen that really started the event training. And I don't know. It had something to do with me. It's like I could really easily transform from a powerlifting to do a strongman, show the next weekend or whatever, which most people have problem with. It's a total different game, but for some reason, it kind of felt natural to me.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And I was going to say, because at your seminar, you talked a lot about the importance of step-ups. And I was going to say, I don't know if I've ever heard any other strongman talk about doing step-ups before. They talk about doing, training yoke walk, training farmers, training all this other stuff. How did you come across using step-ups to train especially that single leg stance? How was that something that you were doing previously and just saw the benefit of it, or was it someone else that mentioned it to you?
Well, I can't remember why I started it, but I was doing a lot of squats, all sorts of squats, pretty much the high bar squats. That was how my training was. I didn't use, in my normal training, I didn't use like the powerlifting stance, the bar lower on your back, and I just had it higher. I worked my legs. My legs were my biggest asset at one point. And being this heavy, I could dunk a basketball, no problem. And just from standing underneath the thing and just jumping with it. But so I had a lot of explosive power. So I would always say I trained pretty much like a powerlifter, pretty much like an Olympic lifter, and a track and field athlete with a slight little bit of bodybuilding.
So you just did a little bit of everything then. You tied it all together.
Yeah. And, a lot of work, a lot of variations. Like I mentioned the other day, it's like on my back day, I would start with the power cleans. Mind you, using no straps. I would start with power cleans. I would go to 180 kilos or something like that, do some reps with that in power cleans. I would put more weight on and just do the high pulls, which is just up to you, like the Olympic lifters training do. From that, I would turn into the deadlifts. And then when I'm pretty much done with my deadlift, I would stand up on a case. And most of my deadlift training actually was no belt. And I would stand up on a block to make my pull longer, to make myself more used to like using my legs in the start of the drive. And from that, I would do stiff leg deadlifting. So it was a lot of work, And this was in Strongman. This is something like that I would do twice a week. I would do overheads or upper body twice a week. And then there would be one day a week just on my legs. All sorts of legs movements and, squats, step-ups, leg presses, leg extensions, just anything to stimulate my legs. I would do it in a way that I would do the weights, a lot of sets with the weights, get the strength there, but then work on my muscle endurance, basically my lactic acid buildup. So get the muscles strong enough, but also to be working for a longer period of time.
Awesome. I know that's something that when I talked to JF Carone, when he came on a little while back, he talked a lot about that as well, just training that volume so that then, when you're doing the heats, he said that was one of the things he always tried to do is, when you're doing the heats, a lot of the guys would kind of burn themselves out. And then when the final came, they don't have much left in the tank. And he said that was one of his things, was always try and train at such a high volume that when it comes time for the final, you're still not fresh, but you still have enough power to compete in the final as well.
Yeah, I believe, the first 3 years they introduced the qualifiers and then a final. First 3 years after they introduced that, I won the show. And I believe that it's because I was the best conditioned athlete at the time, best trained, best all-around athlete. I didn't have months and months just to train on certain events. I just trained for everything. I didn't even know the events usually. A lot of the times I would go to Finland, I would go to Scotland, or I would just get off a plane and just go like, okay, I had all my shoes with me and whatever I needed. And I said, okay, what are we doing? I didn't care.
It's a warrior mentality.
John, do you want to ask a question? I don't want to ask all.
Yeah, I kind of want to rewind a bit. So in researching your career, the 87 Viking Games is the first show that pops up. Was that your first show? And I'm interested to know, how did you get into Strongman? Like, what's that story? How did you first get in? What was your first show? How did it go? Those sorts of things.
My first Strongman was an Iceland's Strongest Man contest. I was only 103 kilos at that time, and I still came in third. So that was my first show. Then it developed me getting invited to Viking shows and competitions. I stepped in. There was a special show we had in Iceland up north. John Paul Sigmarsson was supposed to compete, but he was carrying an injury, so I stepped in his place. So that was me. That was just four of us on a show, and it's just, what can I say? It's just happened. It just somehow happened, and and I was enjoying it. I was having fun with it, and that it came to that spot that I have proved myself worthy to be awarded to be the equipment tester at the Worlds, and then getting my chance to prove myself there. Now, since that win, there was no way back, and there was these, there was these voices saying that I was just lucky to win because certain people wasn't competing there. So I kept on coming back to prove I was worthy, and just to prove a point that I wasn't just lucky.
Do you have a favorite show over the years? I know there have been a lot of them, and it doesn't have to be a World's Strongest Man, but what's your favorite show of all the ones you've competed in? While you think about it, would you like to hear mine? Isaac, and Isaac, you're an honest man, and you'll back me up that I'm not making this up on the spot.
All right.
2021 Magnus Ver Magnusson Classic is my favorite show of all time. It's just because, Isaac knows I like going in the forest and lifting stones, and when I see things to do with the environment like that, it's just beautiful and different from every other show. That was my favorite show.
It was a great show. It was the first one. We run into little hiccups here and there, but all together it came out great. And the next one is going to be even better and bigger. And bringing on like a little bit of different taste of the events, and of course the weather elements and play a part. Well, originally I was planning on having it earlier in the year, but there was something going on in the world that I needed to have it later in the year, and so I put it up in November. So after I did that, I was like, now I'm gonna move it, a little bit warmer, nicer time of the year. And pretty much everybody told me, no, stick with that. That was awesome. So I'm like, okay, I'm sticking with it.
It was awesome. I think it was actually Athor when he came on my show that told me it was coming up, and I got really excited and got to watch it. And Maxime put on an incredible show, and it was great for anybody who's tried to do natural stone press before, try doing it in the snow, and you'll get a little bit of appreciation for how difficult that is.
It didn't make it any easier. I can tell you that. Stone pressing to me is the ultimate overhead press. It's just nothing beats that. It's like, for that kind of, you got to have so much skill, and and every stone is a new challenge. So you got to figure out the balances in it, and then try to lift it, and you can't use too much technique, because if you try to jump it too much, you'll lose your balance and it just goes somewhere flying. And there's a lot of elements that's come into play there. So to me, that's always been my favorite overhead lift.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak from a total novice who's just doing it in the woods. Even getting used to lapping it takes technique.
Yeah, but talking about a favorite show, well, of course, the Magnus Classic is a favorite now, but it was the second World's Strongest, second title in Sun City. That finally came down to the stones between me and Manfred Höbel. It couldn't have been closer. And it took me about 3 weeks to recover after that. But I said, after that one, I said, nope, I'm never doing this again. Well, I forget pretty fast.
That's something that we are very thankful for, because otherwise you wouldn't have developed the legend behind the name Magnus that you have. So I was going to say, though, one of my buddies recommended, because we watched bits of your show and everything, and he was saying that he thought that the event that you should add would be they have to shovel out a path for a boat first and then do a boat drag through the snow. And so if you don't shovel the snow enough, it's going to be a lot harder or something. I was like, it might work, but I don't know if that would.
No. Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of a little bit different ways, but I'm thinking of next time, which was the plan for the first time, but next time I'm going to have more head-to-heads.
Yeah, those are always really fun to watch.
But those logs that Richard Looney of Monster Strong Equipment made for me, they're just awesome. So they just blow my mind. And the original story about that is, like, I contacted Richard because I was supposed to do he asked me to do come over for a show for him. And I've said, okay, I made a deal with him. Hey, Richard, okay, what do you say? I'll come over. You make me two logs and send them over to me, because I wanted to have a logs that could have head-to-heads, in reps or whatever. So 2 identical logs. So he starts making the logs, and he said, the weirdest thing is, like, his show got canceled for some reason, but he said, no, you're still getting your logs. So then he starts making them. He's made them, and he's sending me pictures and everything. And then he goes, like, I'm like, when are you going to send them over? He's like, well, you know what? do you mind if I make a special log for you? I'm like, what do you got in mind? Well, I'd like to make a log in memory of John Paul Sigmarsson. So it's supposed to be 165 kilos, which was John Paul's world record at some point in time. And I said, yeah, feel free. And he says, well, what do you want on it? How do you want me to engrave it? I said, you do whatever you like to do. This is your masterpiece. This is your thing. And he did. And that log is just, when he started sending me, he wouldn't show me too much, but when he sent me a video and of it finished, I was like speechless. I like how, I got like little tears in my eyes, and he told me, as when he was making it, he got tears in his eyes, and because it's just the meaning of it. So then he sends those 3 over, and I used the logs for the first time in my Strongest Man in Iceland last year. And the funny thing, I just used one of the others as a beginning and worked our ways up until 160 kilos. The guys that did that, there were like 3 guys left. So we brought the big one out of the truck. It'd been hitting, and people went like, whoa. So we put that on. 3 guys got to try it. 2 of them got it. And actually, Eithor won the event by adding another extra 10 kilos on it. So that was bad. So then I asked him, because I was thinking about the Magnus Classic, I said, hey, Richard, could you do me one other log, just a little one that I'm going to have as a training log in the gym? For some reason, that ended up that he made 2 logs, which was the Richard Looney log. I said, you could call it the Richard Looney log. So he made a Richard Looney log, which is 120 kilos. The other ones, when I got it, were like 80 kilos, right? So it was 120 kilos, and it was another Magnus Ver Magnusson log, which is 150 kilos. So the Magnus Ver Magnusson log is made out of the same tree as the John Paul Sigmarsson log. So it was, it was the thicker end and a slightly, thinner end, just out of the same tree. And that's the logs I showed in the Magnus Classic, in the log medley.
Yeah, that log medley was amazing. I remember watching it. That was not to bring up bloopers, but that's one where Maxime was asked to go back and had to do one over again, as I recall. But what a warrior! I mean, despite things that didn't go perfectly, he really powered through. Did an awesome job.
The rule we said, don't drop them so they'll bounce off the pads, because we were outside the church when John Paul Sigmarsson was buried in, and we're not allowed to, mess up the ground there, the flooring there, or the tiles. So we had to be really careful. So that was where you kind of have to, control it down. In his case, actually, it was his girlfriend that told him to go back and lift it. The referee didn't tell him to go back and lift it because it bounced to the side. So the pin for the weights was still on the pad. But she wanted to make sure, send it back, lift it. Okay, there you go.
It's all Sam's fault. She's a friend of the show. Yeah. I'll have to give her the business.
We've had them both on a couple of times. We'll have to let her know.
Sam's the best. Sam has a new world record this past week.
Yeah, I saw that.
Fantastic. Amazing. Yeah, big congratulations.
She's turned into an amazing athlete.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I gave them both a couple of tips, so it helped. But I'm all for all the guys that compete at World's Strongest Man, or I'll if they ask me or tips on something or whatever, how they're training, I'll help them out.
Yeah. That actually brings me up. I had another question that someone wanted me to ask you. So do you notice major differences in the styles of training between, they asked American and European strongmen, but just in different countries in general? I know Americans are generally more nitpicky about how they want the event set up and all that sort of stuff. But what are some of the major differences that you've noticed coming from different countries?
I don't know. I think, Strongman is all, one big family, and you gotta respect each other, because you go through the same pain, you go through the same training regimens. There might be some slight difference on how you train and how much you train or something like that, but do the Americans train differently from the Europeans? I don't know, really. I don't think so. It's just a matter of what do you got access to, and most of these guys, whatever, if you don't have access to a strongman gym, they got their things in a warehouse or a storage that they go in weekends and whatever, and take out what they are using that day and train with it outside, and and it's some of them do that in the wintertime.
I think that's something that I've noticed as well, because I know like Mitch Hooper, he trains in a general commercial gym basically, and he's gotten plenty strong enough training in a great big regular gym. So
you'll get that if you do the event training as well. Yeah.
John, do you want to ask a question now? We can alternate if you like.
I do. So most people would ask this question starting off by saying, excluding yourself, nonsense. Including yourself, who's the greatest Icelandic strongman of all time?
Well, you know the answer to that. The greatest Icelandic strongman before I came on the scene was John Paul Sigmarsson. After I came on the scene and I broke all his records, well,
there you go. That's why I said, like, those people that put people in.
There's only two Icelanders that ever won World's Strongest Man 4 times.
Good point. There you go. Thanks for your honesty.
That's awesome. I have another question here. So what's the craziest lift you have ever done or ever seen in the gym or competition?
Craziest thing? I've done a lot of crazy things. I've pulled big ships in the harbor. I've pulled the biggest dump truck in the world. And seriously, with the size of the tires on that thing, that was not easy. And I can't remember how it was, but getting that thing to move, it took some doing. A lot of guys couldn't do it. Some of us managed to do it, but it's just so many things. You will come into a show and I remember when I was starting out, I saw Big Kaz do some amazing lifts. Kaz, don't forget, to me, Kaz was one of the greatest strongmen in the world, and he was ahead of his time and in that kind of area. I believe, looking at him, looking at myself, even John Paul or whatever, if we would have had everything these guys have now to train, and you got these special nutritionists, you pretty much have access to everything. I believe, and I don't want to say a bad word, but but we'd be still be us.
I can understand that. I think I get what you're saying. If you're a champion of the time, you will grow to.
Oh, yeah,
the
you'll grow
group
to
around.
the challenge that is in front of you.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with that. I could see that. John, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I mean, at some point we have to transition into a judging discussion away from athletes. So whenever you want to do that transition, I was just wondering, after having such an illustrious career, what was the sort of contemplation of retirement process like? Like, where did you start getting the idea of, okay, you know, I've done enough now, maybe it's time to move on to other things? Kind of, what was that whole thought process?
Well, you know, to be in a sport, to be involved with the sport, and even though I stopped after '97 competing at World's Strongest Man, I still kept on competing in Iceland and doing some other shows for years and years until about 45. And when I started pulling out, I was asked to come to the show, you know, do the refereeing and things like that. It's an appearance thing, basically. And I started doing that. I, you know, got into the Arnold's refereeing and also all sorts of show over the world. Some emceeing as well. And I got, but I didn't go back to World's Strongest Man until I brought Thor on the scene for his first World's Strongest Man. That's my first time back for a few years, and I think I didn't want to watch the shows. You know, World's Strongest Man for many years. I think it was just something that, you know, even though I did get invites, you know, winning shows back home, and I felt that if I didn't feel like I could win, I didn't want to go. And so I usually sent my protege, John Valgeir Williams at that time, to fill my shoes in that. But I think it was also, you know, you've stepped away from something that's been a part of you for so long, and World's Strongest Man was like, yeah, it was the big show. It was the one that I, you know, always wanted to win, and for me to go back to it, you know, like the next year or the year after that or whatever, and not being competing, I didn't want to do that. It was just, I don't know how to explain it. It just, I didn't feel comfortable with it, and I'll rather stay away from it, not even watch it or anything. Then, you know, things started to move again. A few years ago, I did a Giants live show in Iceland. Then I started working more with the Giants live, and I got invited to World's Strongest Man the first year in Botswana to work with the Channel 5, you know, as the expert, as one of the commentator kind of thing, you know, the hosts. So I did that for 2 years. And I loved doing that job. That was so much fun. And great people that I worked with. And from that, I was asked basically, you know what? Would you mind taking over the role as the head referee? And I said, well, okay, yep, sure, I'll do it. You know, I've never been afraid to stand my ground. You know, there might be a big giant in front of me yelling at me or unhappy or whatever. I'll still stand my ground.
And some of them are very big giants at,
But, yeah,
at some of these
they
shows.
sure are.
Well, that actually kind of answers one of the other questions that someone had asked, was what brought you back to Strongman after your break?
Yeah.
So mostly working with Thor was what brought you back originally, or just was it a
I stayed in contact with a lot of the guys, like, I like the Giants Live and all that, and I even like I said, I went to the Worlds, I went to watch the Europes, and it just kind of moved into that from that. So yeah, but I've enjoyed every minute of it now. It's just that I kind of had to. It was like I just had to step away from it for a while. I still had a little toe in there, but it wasn't until a few years ago that I stepped kind of back into it. But I was still over all these years, even not going to World Strongest, I was still like refereeing the Arnolds and a lot of other shows. So yeah, I was involved with the sport, but not World's Strongest Man or the Giants until a few years back.
Yeah, I mean, I think now you're pretty widely recognized as the go-to judge. Did that just kind of come as a snowball effect after you did one and did another and kind of got more involved with Giants Live? Was that sort of the process?
Yeah, I think so. I believe it seems that I have the credibility. The guys, they usually don't argue much because there's no point arguing about anything, because I hardly do any mistakes. But but we're all human. It can always happen. If I would live up to it. But it hasn't. Nothing major has happened yet. So, but it's it's still hard. You gotta be really focused. You gotta be really focused on what's going on. Watch out for a couple of things. Am I the toughest and meanest referee? Nah, I don't think so. But I'm strict but fair.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a difficult job because, especially like overhead pressing, for example, you have to catch both elbows, like you're looking at multiple things at once.
Well, a lot of these guys, that's what people watching things online or whatever, or replaying things, they don't realize. They look at, he didn't fully lock out, but some people just can't physically fully lock out. And me as the referee, I know that. But people that watch at home, they don't know that. So I always have the guys, it's like in powerlifting. If you have a lockout problem in the bench, you go to the referee, you show them that you have a problem, and you lock it out as far as you can. That's your lockout, for example. And you can't penalize a person, an athlete, for something that he can't physically get himself to. So you gotta look out for a lot of things, and like I said, be fair.
Yeah. That being said, what's your biggest rule infraction pet peeve?
A pet peeve?
Yeah, which rule infraction do you really gets to you where you're like, come on, everybody should be doing this right. Why are they trying to get away with something here?
Well, it's it's the in the nature of the athletes sometimes to try to do things, find an easier way if possible, which is if it's just fine as long as you're not just cheating. But it's like years ago. I tell you, this came up. Somebody complained. We were doing the log for reps from the ground in one of the qualifiers. I think it was in Mauritius or something. I think it was. So I was against Nathan Jones, and Nathan Jones lost, and he complained I had a little towel in my belt here, which was not a big beach towel. It was a little towel like in a bathroom that in hotels that you just dry your hands with. And there was a reason that I put it there. It was not so I could rest the log on it, because actually I brought the log high above the belt before I turned it with the clean. It was because earlier that summer I had been doing something. I can't remember if it was the log or a stone or something. And I pinched my skin on my stomach on the belt. And I realized, if I did that, it was all softer, so that wouldn't happen. So that was the reason for that. But but soon later, everybody started to try to bring in big beach towels and wrap them around their belts. They felt that was going to make all the difference. It wasn't. And I didn't even use my belt for the cleans.
Yeah, I've done that before, where I've rolled a stone up or something, and it's pinched that skin on the belt, and that hurts. It's not pleasant.
Yeah, it does. Actually, my good friend Forbes Cowan from Scotland, he has no belly button. They had to cut it away because he pinched it in a belt. So I did not want that happening to me.
Well, that actually kind of ties into this question that I had, which was what sort of injuries have you sustained from Strongman? And they're also wondering, how's your heart holding up after all the heavy loads and exertion and everything? Is your heart hanging in there okay?
Well, so far, my cardiologist is really happy with the situation in my heart. There is no growth in my heart. It's not unnecessarily big or anything. It works fine. Only thing he found wrong was my sugar levels were a little bit too high, so I dropped a lot of sugar intake. Injuries, yeah. Well, my plan actually was, when I would kind of retire from Strongman, I was going to go fully into Highland Games, as I was pretty good at the throwing as well, and I was two times third at the World Championships in Highland Games. That meant with usually going 3 times to do practicing before I went. That was it. But before I started Strongman, in the beginning of my training, I was doing shot put and discus throwing and stuff like that. So kind of, I knew how to throw things. And I didn't plan on my knees getting messed up. And so that plan didn't work out. I tore something in my knees in Bahamas doing that squat on my last lift, the winning lift. And I ripped a little bit. There was a little tear into both of the quadricep tendons. I did a lot of laser treatment on it. Still came back the next year, won the squat in my qualifying heat on the same apparatus, and won the show. But this started getting worse and worse, and there was a calcium built up on it, and that's one of the reasons that I didn't really go back to World's Strongest Man. It was I had an operation on it. They took a piece out of my tendon, like 8 millimeters thick. Put the tendon back together. That was not enough, so I had to go in there again, pretty much cut the whole tendon off, clean everything, and stitch it back on. So I came back from that. I still squatted 360 kilos after all that, and I started coming back for Strongman back home, and and yeah, was doing well. And I went into a show, one of my shows, and was doing okay in the beginning. There was a tire flip, and I ripped a little bit in my bicep. So that was it. I like, okay, that's enough. I've walked away from it, and sometimes you got to realize, okay, it's time. You started to get hurt too much, and I still kept on doing, powerlifting, deadlifting, bench pressing for years. And just a few years ago, I was doing the last powerlifting show I did. I hurt my supraspinatus. I decided to. I was just going to deadlift in this contest, but then I saw the registration for the bench. I was like, these guys are not going to bench that one. I'll do one lift. That's enough just to win it. And it was an easy weight, and it was supposed to be. The warm up was fine. I'd been feeling my shoulder for a couple of weeks, so I'd laid off it a little bit. So in my starting weight, on my way down, I just feel something just like snap, and the weight comes on my chest. I get the press signal, and I'm like, what should I do? You're like, well, and I pressed it up. I could still feel my, one arm a little weaker, and I finished it. So I won the bench press, but I couldn't raise my arm higher than that afterwards. And I fractured the supraspinatus apparently. I still kept on and won the deadlift as well. then I was just, I couldn't bench with a straight bar. I couldn't do press lift or anything with a straight bar, but I could lift with dumbbells. I could, if I turned my handles like that. So I trained, and 6 months later, I was as the host of the World's Strongest Man in Botswana. So I asked the physio there to have a look at me. So he told me what I hurt. He said, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to break your scar tissue here. It's all healed up. So 2 sessions there. I came back, started training bench press again. I still know about it. It's there, but I got myself in pretty much up to 200 kilos in bench again. And but it was no point anymore. There was nothing to chase. So that was my last ever competition that I entered, except doing the Hercules hold against Kaz.
That was a fun one. I had a great time watching that one. You did well. You did very well.
Yeah, well, I hadn't tried it. I hadn't trained it with that apparatus. I was just asked, hey, would you do it? I said, we get Kaz to do it. I'm like, if you get Kaz to do it, I'll do it. So Kaz agreed to it. I'm like, okay, let's go. So I did all sorts of, standing up with the farmer's walk and just holding them, and I made special handles for my cable cross, and I was just hanging on with weights there. And so I trained for it, and I was ready. I actually wanted to do the full weight, the athletes were using, but I guess they didn't trust us enough to go for that, so they insisted on making it slightly lighter.
It still looked amazing, and you guys, you did really well with it. So, especially having not competing that or not really training it or whatever to that level, I thought it went great.
Yeah, but I get into it. I don't know what to expect, except I tried it that morning when we got to the arena. I just tried it, so because they were measuring up my links and stuff, where I needed to be, and I tried it, and they gave me the weight. And I'm like, okay, I don't feel the weight. There we go. Okay, take it back. So yeah, that was kind of weird, when they gave me the weight. And it's been so long that I've done anything like that, and the atmosphere in the arena was just amazing and electric, and you just get carried away with it. And this old warrior kind of comes out, and you hear nothing, you know nothing, it's just you get arised with the atmosphere. And well, I was holding on far longer than I was expecting, and I could have actually held on a couple of seconds more. I let it go. It was getting heavy.
Hey, Isaac, I have an observation from one of Magnus's stories earlier that I think we can't let slip by. So my observation is that, no offense, but Nathan Jones seems to have come on the short end of the stick against two different Magnuses.
Oh, yeah, true. True.
Yeah, that arm wrestling was pretty fun against
well,
Magnus.
not for him.
Not for him.
No. It's always hard when you see some serious injuries like that. It's or like just witnessed Sadji Arnold's with JF. This is really, it's kind of it gets to you when you witness something like that. And of course you don't want to be in that situation yourself.
JF is an incredible example, though. I mean, he's been on the show a lot, and we consider him a friend. And it's amazing how he has a smile on his face even after having to go through the rehabilitation he's going through now. And he's quite an example of positive thinking for sure.
Oh yeah, there's nothing else you can do. It's like you do your best to recover. Will you ever be able to come back as good or as strong as before? I don't know. Sidrunas hurt his knees, pulled his I think it was the patella tendons in the Faroe Islands, which is, and they did an operation on him over there. Faroe Islands is really, really small islands. And, he managed to come back and win all these titles after that. So, but he was young at that time. When you get older, your healing process isn't as fast as it used to be.
So are you going to have a chair next to you for JF now, and you guys can both be referees for a while?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what happens with that. We'll see. JF is a great guy, and he's had an amazing career, and he's been there. He's been there. He's been that close to that title that he's been able to taste it, but it just slips away.
He's a phenom in, especially squat, deadlift, stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, he's close to unbeatable, or was close to unbeatable before his injury. And I feel bad. I love the guy. We've had him on several different times, and just, I mean, like I said, even when he was on bed rest, so he couldn't get out of his bed and all this other stuff. And he still has a big smile on his face, just the nicest guy ever. And I feel bad that he was never
heavily medicated.
he might have been heavily medicated, but I feel bad that he was never able to get the title. But I think he's such a great example for what strongmen are. They're big, fat, jolly guys who lift really heavy weights, and even when they're injured, still have a smile on their face. So,
yeah, you're in serious pain, and you don't have the smile on your face.
Yeah, he was also second and third at the Shaw Classic, don't forget, which is an incredibly hard show.
Oh, yeah.
And Magnus, you worked the first Shaw Classic, right? What was your experience there?
Well, I worked at both of them, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was the expert at the first one with Todd Harris. And then I was, Brian asked me to be the head official for the next one, which I'm assuming that I'm doing again for him.
Yeah, I really hope so. I think he's doing a good job developing this show, and now that he's having like an amateur category and everything, like I think he's doing a really good job, especially with his popularity, bringing strongman into the mainstream more. So I'm excited to see where his show goes, and the Magnus Classic. I really want to continue watching the Magnus Classic, and maybe one of these days I'll be able to get a plane ticket out to Iceland to actually watch it in person. But we'll see.
No, we've just announced the first ever Magnus Classic qualifier, which is going to be in Gimli, Manitoba, at the Icelandic days, Icelandic festival weekend. So in Gimli, there's a lot of big Icelandic community. There's people that talk Icelandic that's never been to Iceland. So we're going to do the first one there, and that's probably the first one of many. And people get invited to the one in Iceland, and the plan is to build that up, get more qualifiers going as well, and associating with other promoters or something like that, and just give all these athletes. There's so many athletes today that are doing strongman. Just give the athletes more opportunities. There's so many shows that the best guys can't be at all of them. For example, it's almost impossible. You would have to be doing something every weekend. You would have to be at a couple of shows on the same weekend. It's just but no, definitely that's our plan, to build that up. We'll also have in June, we're also running in Canada the world's strongest disabled man and woman. So that's something that I've been involved with almost from the beginning, is the disabled strongman and developing that. We brought it to the Arnolds. We brought it, me and my friend that was the coach for the disabled. He started this years ago, and I started helping him out with it. And we've been doing this for this year is the 20th years anniversary of it. So for many years, Iceland was the only place doing this. Nowadays, we managed to brighten the, get the world with it. There are more shows happening. There's in the States, there's in UK, there's in Iceland. We've grown this sport, and it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah, am I mistaken, or have you worked together with Gary Clark in the UK before on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gary Clark came to Iceland, and for a few times or something. Then he wanted to do something in UK, so we helped him along to make that happen. He does a great job over there, and we have Arnold's disabled at the Arnold's UK as well. So, but because of this kind of pandemic in the world that we are not allowed to talk about, we haven't had it for 2 years in at the Arnold's in Columbus, but we had it for 4 years or something, 4 or 5 years prior to that.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Actually, Gary's a great guy. He's been on the show before. That's why I brought it up. But yeah, awesome.
I had another question that someone wanted me to ask you, which is, how does it feel to have such an awesome name? Where does the name Magnus come from? Is it a family name or?
Yeah, Magnus is actually pretty common Scandinavian name, but my father's name was Magnus Ver Magnusson. So we use the first name as the second name in our culture. So that's why I have the same middle name. Our middle name actually comes from relative years ago. I think she was a sister of my grandfather, and her name was Veronica. So that's how where the Ver came to, and I was baptized same as my father. So I'm Magnus Ver, but I'm Magnusson. Now Magnus actually means the great. Ver means a man. So it's the great man, son of the great.
I mean, that just proves it is an awesome name.
Yeah, exactly. It's even better once you know what it means.
Yes, wonderful translation. Thank you. I had a question actually on refereeing, on judging. So, did you ever have a situation where you made a call that really shifted the outcome for an athlete, either for the better or for the worse, that you regretted later?
No.
Good answer. That's a great answer.
You ever have any of them argue back and you changed your mind?
No. Well, they might argue back, but I don't change my mind.
Okay.
Not if I know I'm right.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess Strongman doesn't have a idea of let's go back and look at the film, right? You kind of make the call on the spot, and that's that.
Well, they've gone back. They've looked at the film. Then they've come back to me. It's on me. I know, you're right. There you go.
At least that's good to know. Like,
it's like even had at the last Worlds, we had in the squat, we had Robert Oberst. So he fails. He doesn't get a rep, and he's like, can I go again? I'm like, that was your chance. And he's like, well, I'm going deeper than anybody else. I was like, no, you're not. Then I get called to the truck, the filming truck, because they'll have to do that. They will have to, get my permission. And they're like, well, he's asking to see the footage. I'm like, yeah, show it to him. So as soon as he sees it, he goes like, oh, sorry guys, that's on me. So he admitted to it right away. That's fine. But I get it. Being a former athlete, I get it. Sometimes, sometimes you think you've done it, or you think you've done it right, but the ref sees something, or something else goes that, But you're an athlete. You get emotional. You think you have it, and it's hard to accept that you don't.
Yeah, in that situation, I think he was also using a particular suit for the first time, so maybe he felt something that wasn't actually happening. Who knows?
Yeah. Mistakes do happen, and being an athlete, and you're there. You have your chance. This is your chance. Don't mess it up.
While I have you here, actually, I wanted to ask your opinion on one of my lifts that I did a little bit ago. Here, let's pull this up. So this is from my Instagram. So this is when we were preparing for the Empire Classic, and so we were testing out the shield. I was going to say, is there anything? Do you have any critiques on how I'm doing this lift here? Don't mind me squatting down so poorly.
Well, only thing I can see you're looking at it is if you could bring it up slightly higher, then it's not in the way of your legs if you're walking.
Okay.
You're pretty tall, so it doesn't hurt you that much. But especially a shorter person.
Yeah.
At any time if you're walking with something like that, and it starts hitting your legs, it's a problem.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where it was at the end of the day. I'd already done, my deadlifts and all this other stuff. And then they were like, oh, you want to test this out and just see if it's feasible for trying to throw into the competition and everything. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I haven't really trained it before. It was fun. But I mean,
something like that is way easier than carrying the real stone.
Probably, although I mean, I was pretty sweaty, so it was sliding through my hands as I was doing it as well. But all right, I'll try and lift it higher then as well.
Yeah, if you can, it makes it a little bit better. But you are that tall that it doesn't really affect you. But when you start trying to go for a distance with it, it's going to slide further and further down. So it will start to hit your legs.
Yeah. I've seen some of the guys do it with like stone sleeves as well when they carry it. Does that actually help much, or is that just?
I think it can help, but I think it's more of the protecting your arms.
Yeah.
Because if that thing digs into your forearms, it hurts.
Yeah, I had some pretty gnarly bruising right there from that outer edge when I was carrying it. So it was fun. It was fun to try it out and play with it. And I was like I said, makes me kind of want to go to Iceland and try the actual stone sometime. But
yeah, I mean, speaking of the actual stone, that was the crown jewel on your show last year. It was amazing to watch. And, everybody's a pro, but certain guys are pros like some of them are trying to figure out how to grab it and whatnot, but some of them just really know what they were doing. And it was, for me, like something special to watch Sigfus do it. It was just
he did good.
Wow, he's just a natural at this. Yeah.
I think it has helped him as well. He's lost some weight. He took some weight off, and I believe it made him a better athlete. Sometimes if you're too heavy, it can get in your way, and it can hinder you in certain things. But he did really well on that.
He did. How about the other athletes at your show? Was there anybody that stood out to you and kind of surprised you, where you thought like, oh, they really made their mark in that event? I wasn't expecting that.
Other than Maxime.
Well, Aethor really stepped it up by winning that stone press, and that was the same stone that he had done. He had pressed that stone before, but with way better conditions. And well, what kind of shocked me? I was expecting more from all the athletes in the stone press. I know they've been getting ready for it. They would, but actually be there and or training on a block or something like that, or Mauser block or something. It is a total different thing. So if you haven't gone and played with a stone that like that, you're in for a shock.
For sure. And was it Ryan England who ended up going for the record and missed it? Just barely missed it.
Yeah. Ryan was doing really well at it. He some people just manage to handle it and get the feel for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the great things about your show. It brought out names that maybe some folks in the U.S. didn't know before, that we know, like Christian Haraldsson. I didn't know before, and I want to see him again.
No, I call him the monster baby.
He is a baby.
Yeah, he's that kid. He can do some. His only Achilles heel really so far is the deadlift, but he's still not bad at it. But Yeah, he's promising.
Yeah, I know he had said he wanted to win one event there, and he won stone to shoulder, so that was a good outcome.
He won that, yeah. And I think that's to do something like that, to do the stone medley to shoulders was something that I just wanted to do something different than just a normal stone load. And I think this is way better to see that see them athletes bring it up, getting it to the shoulder, and it's visible. You can see them instead of them being hidden behind a platform that they're loading onto or something like that. And there's nothing except just a drop parts or whatever to save the ground.
Yeah, stone to shoulder is a visually exciting thing because you have a giant stone going on a smaller shoulder, and wow, it's amazing when it happens.
I wanted to ask you as well. So, your ideal competition, like how many events would it contain, and what sorts of events would it contain?
My ideal competition is 8 events. 8 events pretty much test. You manage to test the whole body, all aspects of strength. And as you saw Brian Shaw do on his second show, it was 8 events. Now I plan on bringing 8 events onto the Magnus Classic as well. So yeah, but to do 8 events, you don't want to try to do that in one day. So it's quite difficult to do that. But I think you get a better all-around test with 8 events than, for example, 6.
What sort of events would you want those 8 to be? Like a deadlift variation, a squat variation, a log variation?
Well, it's pretty much some kind of a deadlift thing. It's like an overhead, of course, stone press, some kind of a stone load, stone carry, like a Husafel or something like that. And I think I pretty much had it pretty close to perfect at the Magnus Classic, but with the events that I chose for it, and that's gonna be hard to beat. But you gotta to have an all around test, you gotta have a truck pull of some sort. You gotta have a loading, where you're loading different objects. You gotta have a grip test. So something like the Dinny Stone Walk or something like that is fantastic. Well, I didn't have the Dinny stones in the Magnus Classic, but I had stones for the walk.
You also had those farmers, which were no joke.
That's what I'm saying. You had stones,
Yeah.
stones as farmers, and they were kind of normal handle. But I've been thinking of changing that into a round handle. So, yeah, things like that. Some kind of a throwing event as well. You gotta test everything. You gotta test the explosive power as well.
Do you prefer, for carry events, do you prefer carries for distance or for time? So like a 50-foot course and whoever does it fastest wins, or do you prefer like we're just going 75 seconds and you're just going as far as you can?
Until you drop it.
Yep.
Yep.
I like that, I think, too.
Well, that's how it used to be always when I was competing. I started out with this. It was pretty much, farmers work was pretty much until you dropped it.
Yeah, it's more natural that way. UK Strongest Woman last year was that way with a carry. It was carry until you drop it. That's where you actually saw Donna Moore really shine with her experience and resting and breathing the right way. And yeah.
That was something else I wanted to ask you as well. So, because I've done like sandbag carries and stuff like that before. I have a 330 pound sandbag that I like to that's my cardio. I pick that up and run with it as far as I can. Do you have tips and tricks for how to breathe when you're doing that? Because all that weight on your chest makes it hard to breathe. So I try to do like top off breathing, just little breaths. Or do you think it's better just to hold your breath and just go as far as you can until you pass out?
No, you need to breathe. That's an important thing. I can tell you one tip that has helped everybody in with their farmers is, but I've had a few guys like that. You can ask Chad Coy about this. They all hated doing it, but it did work. They were puking their guts out afterwards usually. But so you put the farmers up, right? You're ready. You've warmed up. You've done all of your thing. You have your straps, but you don't put them around the handle. So you pick up, you walk until you drop it, and you pick it up pretty much right away, and walk those couple of extra steps until you drop it again. Then you strap onto it, pick it up, and walk until you can't go any further. This will increase your farmer's walk, but this is hard.
Yeah, I could see that being very, very difficult.
Try it out. Send me video. Send me how you get on with it.
I'll try it out. We're moving down to Florida here in about 2.5 weeks now, and I think there's a strongman gym close to where I'm moving. So hopefully they have some good equipment, and I'll have to start training it again and give that a shot.
All right.
I'm not allowed to use straps on farmers. I'm not even allowed to use knurled handles. JF gets mad at me.
I was going to say, Jeff had some very strong opinions on using straps with farmers, but I think if you're doing it for training, like Magnus said, after you've already dropped it, yeah. I could see it being beneficial.
Yeah, he's very binary. He's like, you either have strong grip or you don't.
Yeah, well, this way you're forcing your body, even though your hands have given up.
Right.
And you're getting close to the lactic acid thing, and your muscle endurance. So you're forcing your body to keep working.
Yep.
And by doing so, you will eventually benefit from it in the way that farmers walk, you'll be able to start going further before you drop it.
Yeah, I'll try it out.
Well, we've been going for a while. Do you have any more questions that you want to ask him, John? I know, Magnus, Dave texted me a little bit ago and said that he's taking you to dinner, so yeah. I don't think he wants you to stay too late on here.
No, I'm all set. I'm not holding anybody up.
Okay. I'm sure you want to go enjoy your dinner, but well, thank you so much for coming on. Are there we usually give our guests a chance to shout out any of their sponsors or anything like that at the end. If you have any sponsors or anything, or anyone in particular that you want to give a shout out to, you can do that. I know your competition is coming up, so if you want to talk a little bit about the qualifier with that, whatever you want to do with the last little bit of time here.
Well, I would. Anybody that wants to be a part of that kind of contest, Magnus Ver Classic qualifiers, please contact us. We'll give out the contact information pretty soon, and so get on. Send us your resume, and it's still going to be, not too many competitors. Well, we'll get some few good ones, and probably will be 1 or 2 guys coming from Iceland as well. So that's going to be, an interesting thing to do, and it's hopefully a start of an annual thing over there. So before we take it further, I got some people in mind that will have possibly do the other Magnus Classic qualifiers. And my partner there in all this is Tony Vandenberg with the Jakobo Strong Fit. And I want to give a shout out to my partner and friend for 30 years, Arnar Már Jónsson. He's the founder. He's the one that started the whole disabled thing, disabled strongman, and we've been together on that journey for a long time, and it always is enjoyable. That's all about the athletes, giving those athletes a platform to shine and to see them step out of their disability and do stones and do stuff that all the others can do. We've found a way for these athletes to shine, and I want them to be able to go further with what we do, and I want to get some more sponsors behind it. I want to get these guys prize money, and it's like, that's the plan.
Very good. That's awesome. Yeah, I know because we've had Gary Clark on before, and we've had some of the other guys, and yeah, I think that's fantastic. Giving them that outlet, they seem extremely thankful for it. So, John, any final questions or comments before we let Magnus go enjoy his dinner?
No, just our sincere thanks for jumping on. It was very exciting for us, and wish you all the best. Hopefully we do it again sometime.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. All right. Thank you for joining us. And for everyone still watching, go out and have a wonderful week and great weekend. And yeah, Magnus, thank you once again for joining us on such short notice.
All right.